Let's talk, though, instead about what's going on in City Hall, in the London Assembly, because this very morning we broke the story that Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, has been accused of basically manipulating the results of a poll, manipulating the results of a consultation in which he was asking Londoners whether they wanted to see an expansion of the Ulez zone. That's the ultra-low emission zone, which currently affects most of London, but now, come later in the year, will start affecting large parts of the surrounding areas of London, into Kent, into Essex, and into other places as well. And so emails, according to the man we're about to speak to, Peter Fortune, Deputy Leader of the Conservative Group, suggest that the Mayor's officials removed thousands of votes submitted to the consultation. They supposedly did not count people who dissented from the view. More than 5,200 votes from motoring groups, equivalent to 1 in 10 responses, were discounted by officials, according to these claims. And basically that led Sadiq Khan to go ahead with it, to put the prices up, to expand the Ulez area. Basically, he had said if there was a lot of opposition to it, it wouldn't go ahead. He's accused of not counting the opposition to it and thereby saying there wasn't any. Let's talk to Peter Fortune now and see what this is all about. Peter, a very good morning to you.
Good afternoon now.
Well, good afternoon, I should say. Yeah. Sorry, my apologies. Time has moved on. This seems like an extraordinary story. I know we've all suspected that, that the opposition to this expansion was very much a stronger thing than the people who were in favour of it. You say there's evidence of emails which suggest that that's true, that there was a lot more people against it than there were for it. So how has this possibly happened? We've got a denial from Sadiq Khan, which I'll get to in a minute. But tell us what you found.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right to talk about the opposition to the Ulez expansion. And without, rehearsing that argument too much, this is an expansion that's going to hit the very poorest in Londoners with a charge to drive. And also, it's an expansion that, using the independent assessment from the Mayor's office, is going to make very little change to air quality in outer London. So our argument has always been that, of course, you want cleaner air wherever you can get it, of course, but this is the wrong policy to do it. Now, the Mayor used a consultation with Londoners to push his argument through. In October, I questioned him to ask whether or not he'd been paying attention to that consultation, whether he'd been monitoring the reports and the results that came in, and he told me categorically that he hadn't. Which brings us to these papers, and I've got them here. We've got over 200 pages of documents that you can see here, heavily redacted. Yeah. And it's worth noting that they're all quite heavily redacted from somebody who said he was going to be the most transparent mayor.
And did you obtain these papers by a Freedom of Information Act? How did you get them?
We did. Well, somebody from TfL who was quite concerned about the way that these results were being manipulated we actually had a couple of people contact us to say that they were a bit concerned about the fact that the results that were coming in, because they weren't going in the direction that the Mayor's office wanted, that they were leaning on the results. They were trying to get people to write in and to sort of support the Mayor in terms of the consultation, and they didn't think it was right, which is why I questioned the Mayor, and he categorically denied it. And I think that's the really important issue that we don't want to get lost here, is that the London Assembly's role is to scrutinise the Mayor in what he's doing. The Mayor is supposed to be serving Londoners. Now, when he came to talk to us and he was asked categorically about whether or not he had had an eye on these results, whether or not anybody had tried to manipulate or change these results, he denied it. And these documents that we have show that that's not the case. Fair Fuel are one of the organisations that took issue with the policy to expand the camera network. Over 5,000 of their responses were removed from the consultation results.
That seems an extraordinary thing to do, isn't it? And do you have any sort of idea, or do you have any evidence in those papers that you've managed to obtain as to why that happened or how it could have happened?
So if you read through these papers, which are going to be made available, you can see that there are meetings where people are concerned, where they have employed or sought out external agencies to try and drive some of the results. They specifically target younger people who they believe will give them a more positive result to Ulez. Yeah. You can see that in these papers, in these briefings that went to the Mayor, which he denied he had, and to the Deputy Mayor, who also denied he had these briefings, they talk clearly about action points to try and drive the results in another direction. And as a result of moving those emails that came in from organisations like Fairfield, almost 1 in 10 of those responses removed. You saw the voice of Londoners pushed down from 60-something% opposed down to 59% opposed. Still, quite a significant opposition has to be said, and he's still driving ahead with it regardless. But it seems to be from these papers that they did what they could to try and manipulate and drive those results in the direction they wanted. And this, to me, Mike, this smacks of predetermination.
Yes.
This says to me that this is something the mayor and his team wanted to drive through, and the consultation, that conversation with Londoners, was just a ruse. He didn't mean it. He was never going to listen to the results. And that's a really concerning issue for me.
Absolutely right. And in his denial, his statement he has issued to us, right of reply, he calls it, he says, amongst other things, TfL takes its responsibility to run robust and legally compliant consultations extremely seriously. He says any suggestion that TfL or the mayor has sought to influence the results of the Ulez consultation is simply untrue. Now, you might say that that's a rather clever way of avoiding the accusation, because what he's basically saying there is that he did not seek to change the results or influence the results of the consultation. Now, that may well be true, but he doesn't say that people that perhaps work for him didn't seek to do that. He says, as part of a rigorous consultation process, it was right for TfL to seek responses from as wide a range of Londoners as possible, including young Londoners whose lives will be affected by air pollution for years to come. Well, that's fine, but he doesn't actually address the allegation that you make, which is that he ignored some of the other groups of people.
Sadiq Khan is a very good politician, Mike. People sometimes mistake that. Now, he's not a very good mayor. The state of...
I think we'd agree on that.
Moment, if you look at the lack of starts in housing, if you look at the mess that TfL's in, he's not a very good mayor, but he's a very good politician. What he will do is he will try and deflect and move and swerve. Whenever you talk to him about the impact of Ulez on small businesses, on charities, on people wanting to go to work, he will deflect to air quality. Now, I've already addressed that, and I've addressed that with him many, many times. His own independent assessment, it's the Jacobs independent assessment. We didn't do it as a Conservative group. People go look it up. It says there on that chart that there's they expect a negligible change in air quality as a result of these changes to outer London, right?
And what about the idea that that congestion in London under his watch has actually got worse? I mean, this year alone, London, it was last week, in fact, London was named the most congested city in the world, on the planet.
Sure. And so my question would be, how does finding people, the poorest in London, how does finding them to drive their vehicles reduce congestion? How do people swapping vehicles reduce congestion? It doesn't. He's not... The big question here, the real doozy, Mike, is why is he doing this, right? Why is he doing it? He's got a book coming out next year, which is based around climate activities and what he has done as mayor to fight climate issues. And then he's also moving in a direction, I believe, of paper mile road user charging, which is people being charged for every mile that they drive. Now, look, there's
that's going to be all he has left in the end, isn't it, to raise even more revenue?
Well, pretty much. And you know, there's a discussion to be had about road user charging, but not in the way that the mayor does it. Like I was saying, he's a very good politician and he deflects. Now, the TfL consultation gave the results that were provided to them by Londoners, right? So let's separate. The mayor's trying to sort of mix all this together. Let's be clear, the TfL consultation, when it was all added up, showed an overwhelming number of Londoners opposed expansion of Ulez. That was TfL doing the job it was asked to do. What I'm saying is then the mayor's office, having seen this, have panicked and then said, well, how can we manipulate? How can we change these results? How can we change this narrative to one that we want? And that, for me, is predetermination. Yeah. And if you've got predetermination in the consultation, then I think there are legal issues around whether or not the consultation stands. Now, why is he in such a rush? I keep coming back to that question, why? Why is he doing this? What's his plan? What's his strategy? Why is he trying to rush it through to August? He's trying to rush it through to August because this policy, which was not in his manifesto, he did not stand for election on an expanded Ulez zone out to cover all of London. He knows that if it's delayed from August and it starts moving into the end of 23-24, this becomes an issue around election time. And I don't think he wants to go into the polls asking Londoners to support this policy because he'll get the same result he had last time, which is an overwhelming majority saying no.
Right. And you've seen this statement that he's issued, I'm assuming, which is, 4 or 5 paragraphs. We've shown it on screen. Are you convinced by his denial that he tried to influence the results?
On the 13th of October, and this is documented, you can find this footage, I asked him if he'd seen the results. And he said categorically no. In fact, I asked him 5 or 6 times if he'd seen the results. He said no. We've now got these papers which have been released, and I see briefings from before then where the mayor has been briefed on the consultation results.
And so, in other words, he's seen them, but has he influenced them?
So what you can also find in these reports are bullet points, action points, where they say, we're going to go out and we're going to talk to external digital marketing companies who can target some of our campaign to people who they believe will get them more positive results for Ulez. You can see that they're upping spend on advertising campaigns, trying to get the positive results that they wanted to try and drive down the overwhelming majority who were responding to the consultation. And it wasn't easy to respond to the consultation, by the way. There were 50-odd questions in there, but who responded to the consultation to say that they did not want this expanded charge, this charge that's going to hit the poorest in London, this charge that's going to drive people out of business, this charge who's going to stop people visiting friends and family.
And so what can you do now? Now that he's denied it, is that the end of it?
What was really pleasing is that the local boroughs are now looking at, with the evidence that we're providing today, and they're looking at what powers they have to prevent this happening. Yeah. TfL are of the view that they have some powers that can push this through. When I asked them about it, they said that they would rather the boroughs, essentially folded and just let them. I don't think that's going to happen. My own boroughs of Bexley and Bromley have strongly come out against it. Pleasingly and surprisingly, the Liberal Democrat borough in Sutton have said that they're going to fight it. And I know there's movements in Havering, Hillingdon and other boroughs as well. So local people need to push back. You need to email in. You need to let your London Assembly members know about this. The London Assembly isn't a particularly well-known political body. And there'll be lots of people now are contacting their members of parliament, etc. But let your London Assembly members know as well, because we see the mayor quite regularly. We'll be seeing him on Thursday of this week, and he needs to understand the depth of feeling, the depth of concern against this Ulez expansion, which the evidence is suggesting was a predetermined route he wanted to take, put through with a consultation that hasn't been done, can we say, completely legitimately.
Excellent. Well, good work, and thank you for uncovering it, and let's hope that we can put a stop to this ridiculous expansion and this ridiculous preying on motorists and this ridiculous victimising of motorists constantly, consistently, and to no avail, apparently, because what is the point of claiming that you're going to try and make the world a cleaner place? I mean, in his right of reply, Sadiq Khan's spokesman says this, and this is the first statement that's issued. This is the first paragraph of the statement. The real scandal is that toxic air leads to the death of thousands of Londoners every year, which is why the mayor took the difficult decision to expand the Ulez London-wide. Well, that is simply not true, is it? There was one death, which one inquest and one judge in that inquest found that there was some connection between the pollution in a street where a young girl lived and her death. But she was asthmatic, and there is definitely no conclusive proof that anybody else has suffered in the same way. The Mayor of London, of course, will say that it is true that pollution is killing 40,000 people a year. But if that's true, why is he making it more polluted by making the congestion worse? Because that presumably would mean that he's putting up the risk of even more people dying. And that can't be right for an elected mayor, can it?